Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by the amazing Chris Thomas. Chris, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the invite. It's wonderful to be here.
No, I'm super stoked to have you, man. When we talk about film a lot, we talk about the score and how important the score is to a film, and you've done that, but you also have your Halloween album, Purgatillo. When will that be available for people to hear that?
It's available right now. That came out strategically on Friday the 13th, one of the holiest of days every year. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the best part is you guys don't have to go far to find it because I have the links for it right down in the description below. So, something I've always loved is, when people do scores but are also very musical in other aspects. Like, what got you started in, scoring film?
Well, it's something I realized I always wanted to do. I've always loved music, like most people, but for me, my love really started with cinema. And when I was a kid,
Mhm.
I discovered the films of Hitchcock, Fellini, Kurosawa, and people I didn't realize were truly like the greats, like the Beethoven or Brahms of cinema. And
Sure.
and I realized, oh, I don't think I really have the eye to be a director. I know I'm not a good screenwriter, and I didn't know what a producer was, so I never cared to find out or be one. But I realized, oh, the, there's something about the way the music interacts with picture, and I thought, if I want to be a storyteller and serve this industry, maybe through music. It was the one thing that I seemed to excel very easily at. And so I
Sure.
went to music because I thought, oh, I love cinema. And if this is my way to work with cinema, then this is the path I'll take. And it led me to studying piano and cello, and which the piano especially supported me going into composition. Whoa. And almost just took the whole rig down here.
Well, and not only have you done film, like I said, Purgatillo, which you guys can check out now. You also scored the ghost themed video game Hides, Haunt, and Seek, which is also coming out soon as well. So,
Yeah.
what's the difference between doing a film and a video game for you?
Well, a film, you only really get to do one sort of thing. You're you're mapping your way through a scene that's been shot, edited. It's locked in the position that you see it, and sometimes you need to catch moments or like a cut, and that cut might be 1/24th or 1/30th of a second. And so
Mhm.
there's a lot of gymnastics to try to map carefully so the click track you're recording to could just hit fractions of a second, and it's just a lot of precision work. Writing the music isn't really the hardest part. It's like really understanding the tempo, like the edit is being cut at, and
Sure.
finding out how to really place music at strategic moments, and then hit it at a precise fraction of a moment. So it's a lot
Mhm.
of that kind of thing. You spend a lot of time just moving tempos around. Where with games, you do some of that. There are sections where you're acting like a film composer. You're hitting things down to the frame at some transitions, but sometimes you just need the sound in that world. And you need to compose music that, as we start in this region of the game and then drift into the next region, these two tracks will seamlessly blend, and you're just generally creating a sound through these areas. So you can be a little more broad and just kind of focus on the music as a standalone that doesn't need picture to make sense of it. Sometimes film music gets a little janky. It's a little awkward to listen to all the timing changes in a song. You know, Taylor Swift songs don't have groups of three beats followed by four beats followed by seven followed by two followed by three. You know, so
Sure.
but with a game, you can really step back and just focus on music. Sometimes I find,
And just have a little. It seems like you have a lot more freedom when it comes to a game as well.
yeah, yeah, in many ways you do.
Well, I mean, and like I said, you're a composer, but it's you have so many feathers in your cap. Like I said, not only is it video games, movies, you also score haunt attractions. Now, a lot of those, it's going to be different because people go at a different pace when they're walking through. You have different timings and stuff like that.
Right.
What are some of the tricky parts about scoring a haunt attraction?
Yeah, it's interesting because with attractions, just like any theme park thing, whether it's a walkthrough or sometimes they're rides, or
Mhm.
sometimes there are big shows that happen in an attraction. And so um, we the tricky part with some walkthroughs, even like really good ones, like at Universal or Knott's Berry Farm, is just a really practical problem, like noise bleed. You're
Yeah.
in one zone, and but if there's a switchback in the halls you go through, and you have two different scores, there is bleed over, and so
Hmm.
sometimes there's a lot of discussion about how do we tune the sound to exist in this space and use the reflections of the sound to our advantage. And sometimes, there's no amount of audio science that can save you. You just have to just go in with a cacophony, and sometimes the cacophony could also be fun. It's
Right.
part of the experience. And But rides even, you don't need to be as precise as with film, so you could still be a little more musical in certain ways. You're not looking for a 24th of a second. It's around the second. Let's hit here. So
Right.
the pressure's off a little bit.
So in scoring, like I said, with a video game and a movie, especially with a movie, you get your full edit and then you write your score over top of it? Is that the way that you work?
Yeah, yeah. There are some composers who like to sketch based on what they see in the script. And I thought, oh, that makes a whole lot of sense. Maybe I should try that. But I found out right away that did not work for me. Because when I look through
Hmm.
a script, and every filmmaker's like, oh, yeah, the first thing we want to do is give you the script, invite you into this world before we even shoot it, and start imagining with us. And I thought, yeah, that makes so much sense. But then I read a script, and a movie and a world builds in my head. And I see the characters. I begin to see the pace of an edit. I begin to see all the pieces. I start hearing score. But then you go to set and then watch what they're actually shooting, who's actually in it, how the filmmaker
Sure.
actually interprets the rhythm of these scenes. And 100% of the time, I've got it wrong. I've got it backward. I interpreted the script through my own lens, and they see a whole different movie. And so then I'm spending
Yeah.
months trying to purge everything that I got so excited about. And whenever I've made sketches in advance, none of them are remotely usable. And so I realized I need to have this awkward conversation with every filmmaker. They're always like, "Oh, read the script, we'll talk," and then it's like, you know what? I have to say something that you may not like, and I'm going to try to avoid
Right.
reading the script. And then they're like, "Oh my goodness." Before I rage out at you, why do you not want to read the script? And I explain that, and then they generally do respect that. And then I wait till I can either go to
Which
set.
I think,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
no, go
no,
ahead.
like I think that you're 100% right. Like everybody works at their own pace and everybody works at what is comfortable for them. And like you said, I don't want to take the time to read the script and not in a disrespectful way and
Right.
write a whole thing in my head just for it to go a completely different way when you give me the finished product.
Yeah, and it may undermine what they actually did because I found it was really hard to get rid of all the stuff I had come up with. And it
Hmm.
began, and there's this part of me that kept wanting to shift the mood back to the world I built. But the problem is, I need to focus on the world they created.
Right.
And when the two are competing, it really slowed things down for me. And so whenever I'm just a blank slate until that first, even like a rough assembly, when you see the real movie they shot, that's the actual movie you're scoring. That's like the truth. And so I have to wait for the actual thing. And then I allow all the ideas to start generating.
And then, we're talking about, you're watching the edit.
Mhm.
What about with like a haunt? Like, how do you
Mhm.
score a haunt? Do you walk through it first, like, and kind of get an
Uh,
idea, or?
so this is my worst nightmare with the script thing come true, because they're still designing it and tweaking it, moving everything around while you're still recording it. And
Yeah.
so they go through a lot of trouble to map it out, do digital mock-ups, and show me all the stuff that's going to be in there to the best of their ability. And they're like, yeah, while you're scoring it, we're still constructing it. So it's not like I can preview it. Like a big theme park ride, yeah, they're pretty locked in with how it'll roll, and you can kind of do digital like walkthroughs on a roller coaster, and it's down to the like second, even like fractions of a second accurate. So that's
Yeah.
better. But Haunters, it's like, oh, here's a big theme park. We have this gap between two other busy seasons, and we're going to slap together all these haunt attractions like in like a month. And so you just have to go in a little blind. And I think we all just give each other the grace and forgiveness for whatever might go wrong. And then often I'm recutting stuff after we deliver it, install it, and they're like, "Oh wow, all that fun." Like I just got edits on something being installed in this Canadian theme park, and I have all these like kind of Disney Small World animatronic machines. It's the Small World kind of come to life,
Yeah.
of course, before they attack you. But I distorted the heck out of all the singing in the songs. And in the mix, we loved it. But when we installed it, it just sounded like we had a bad sound system that didn't work. So I actually had to dial some of the scary distortion back and just let the lyrics speak more clearly. And somehow it was scarier. And we didn't know that until it was built, installed, and they thought, oh, it's less scary. To listen to the first version, it's terrifying. But in the haunt, it didn't have much impact. And so I have to edit stuff during installation.
See, and that's part of the headache you're talking about too, you know. But sometimes those can create happy accidents to where they turn
Oh,
out
yeah.
better than you thought they were going to be.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
and now I do want to also talk about the Hollywood Music and Media Award.
Mm,
You won that in 2020 for your composition of the Imagine Symphony Live. What
yeah.
was that like for you to get that award?
Oh, that was great. Like when you're nominated alongside, Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard and people like that. That was pretty fun. I got nice notes from all of them that night, and a lot of them
No.
said, "Hey, we checked out that piece, like beautiful work," and it's just like fun to get a note from Hans. And
Yeah.
um, it was also a really fascinating evening. It wasn't like other Hollywood Music and Media Award nights because I've had I think four nominations at this point, and I've attended the show a number of times, and it's a fun show. But the year I won was 2020, and I
Sure.
was there's this picture my wife took of me on the couch in my pajamas with cats on my lap doing this, like yay, because they just projected across the TV, and so I accepted from the couch, uh, because we were all
That's
locked
all. I
in.
mean, it
So
sucks. I wish you could have been there, but it's still a unique experience. At least you're with your family doing it, and that's pretty rad. Um,
yeah,
so like I said, we got Prigatio down in the description, guys. I also have Chris's social media links, so make sure you're following him to stay up to date on all the amazing things he has coming up for us as well. One last question for you. I know that scoring film is extremely difficult. You've done a lot of horror. Is horror the genre that you went into wanting to score?
not necessarily. As a composer, I realized there's a lot of things I'm good at outside of it, and really like big orchestral dramas. I think are my other specialty. But the thing is, I grew up loving scary movies. I loved
Yeah.
classic cinema, but my mom and my grandma really loved horror, and they introduced me to all the horror classics. And from like age 5, I just realized how fun very scary movies are. And when I started meeting lots of other like A-list film composers, people in my family knew about, I'd like send a text to my dad, "Hey, wow, I talked to Alan Silvestri today, or James Newton Howard," and they're like, "Oh wow, that's wonderful! Like how fun!" But then it was like, and I told my mom, I got to meet Chris Young, who did like Nightmare on Elm Street, Hellraiser, and all that
Yeah.
stuff. It was like, oh my god, that was like a celebrity
Yeah.
name for us, and so he became something of a mentor figure to me, and I spent some years just kind of under his wing, and he advised me on a lot of stuff in my first couple years in LA. And I see him at all the haunt shows around Southern California too. He's a big haunter, and we also have that in common. And so I
Right.
think I was kind of destined for this world. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So the last question I have here on Sledgehammer Horror, the big thing that we do is my first horror movie. And we talk to people about the first horror movie they watched and what it meant to them. So do you remember what the first horror movie that you watched was?
I do. I do. It was Night of the Living Dead, the original. Yeah.
What a
Just a
great film to
classic.
start off with, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
and
really
it
is a
wasn't.
classic.
Yeah, and it wasn't one of those movies that had a big over the top score, like just barely any at all. And
Yeah.
I'd never seen anything like it. It was such a foreign idea to me, and I remember taking away a certain somberness after. It wasn't like, whoa, what a fun ride. Like a lot of other horror movies are like, wow, that was a crazy adventure. This one had a lot of undertones, and it wasn't until I was older and kind of put some pieces together, about like the lone survivor, and then who ends up being murdered just by other living people at the end. Like there were some deep social undertones, but at 5 years old, I was like, my feelings are mixed, and I don't know why.
Zombies.
And yeah, and I was just loving the zombie part. That was a very new idea to me at that point, and I was just hooked on it ever since. I thought, oh, this is a fantastic genre.
And like I said, it's one of those movies that is just it stood the test of time. It really is one of those movies that I adore. It's like I said, the social commentary, everything about that movie. I think George Romero knocked it completely out of the park. So
Yep.
I said it at the beginning,
Absolutely.
guys, but we're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, make sure you're listening to Purgatio. That link's in the description. And following Chris on social media. All his links are down there as well. Chris, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It does help build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.